Hello and welcome to This Is Austin. What does Sony need to do for the PS5 to succeed?
They need to beat Xbox. Thank you very much for watching this episode of This Is. Make sure to subscribe, like, and comment for our next episode all about how the Xbox can beat the PS5.
I think for that one, spoilers, the Xbox needs to beat the PS5.
Wow, now no one's going to watch the second video too.
What we need for Sony to succeed over Xbox this year is basically them to not do anything they did with the PS3. The PS3 launch was horrible.
I agree, price is very important for PS5. So when you look at the console, it's a very big console.
It's huge.
The thing is, though, is that it's actually less powerful than the Series X. It does not have that same level of performance, except if you consider the SSD. It does not have the same GPU, does not have the same CPU. There's some talk of variable frequency where it might sort of have not the most stable level of performance in the world. So for me, the PlayStation 5 to succeed this generation needs to match or beat the Xbox in price. So if Xbox is 500, they need it to be 500. I don't even think digital edition counts.
I agree with you that it needs to have the same price for the disc version, because I think another thing that they need to get in order to win is having that full backwards compatibility.
Yes.
They've been kind of waffling on what isn't compatible, and even if it's not like a day one launch thing, they need to have full PS4 compatibility.
The PlayStation 5 and Series X have a unique advantage in that they are both taking advantage of a newer generation of the same hardware from last generation. So when you look at like older generations, so say GameCube to Wii was a really easy transition because the Wii was essentially a slightly faster GameCube, but all the same components were there, which meant the GameCube games ran just fine on Wii, all that kind of stuff. And same thing going Wii to Wii U, it was a very similar generation going forward. But when you look at the PS4 and PS5, they're pretty similar hardware-wise. They both have AMD-based CPUs, they have AMD-based GPUs. There's no reason why PlayStation 4 games should not run just as well on the PlayStation 5 as they did, right? There's no reason that you should have a PlayStation 4 and a PlayStation 5 in your setup. You can completely get rid of the PS4. You should probably sell it now to get your max value out of it, but there's no reason why they can't do that. However, we've heard pretty consistent rumors for this year that the PS5 is having some issues with backwards compatibility.
There's been no list of like, okay, you know, these games because they take care of like X or whatever. You know, you have like, it's just so much inconsistency. So you have all these people with these big game libraries that say, well, now is that useless at the time of launch?
So there certainly will be some level of PS4 backwards compatibility. But what I want to know is, what is that level? They've talked about the idea that PS4 as well as PS4 Pro games will have their own modes, right? So if something's been optimized for PS4 Pro, you'll get all of those upgrades. But the thing is, between that and the fact that most PS5 games seem to be exclusive, obviously there will always be some level of cross-gen titles. But when you look at what Xbox is doing with smart delivery, they are absolutely setting the benchmark for backwards compatibility and cross-gen play.
Yes. So the way Microsoft is doing this is they're saying if you buy a game for Xbox One, there will be a patch that it'll be like you'll have
if it says smart delivery. Not all games
if it's
will.
Smart delivery, you'll have that for Series X, and it'll take full advantage of Series X. You won't have to buy a remastered version of it later on, which is key. No one wants to buy the same game twice unless you're Rockstar trying to sell GTA 5 for.
You want to play GTA 5 for Xbox 360, upgrade it for Xbox One, upgrade it for Xbox Series X? So what we don't really know right now is what Sony's approach is to this. They haven't really talked about any kind of level of cross-generation play, which does not mean it doesn't exist. They certainly could have it in their back pocket. But it's a little concerning to me that sort of Xbox has very much been leading here, and Sony has been like, hey, go buy a new PlayStation, hey, go buy these new games, especially Spider-Man. Spider-Man, I think, is going to be my real sort of canary in the coal mine for the way that they're approaching this. Spider-Man Miles Morales is essentially an upgraded version of Spider-Man PS4 with essentially like it's an expansion pack. It's a smaller scope of a game. Now, that obviously will be running on PS5. Whether or not we see normal Spider-Man running on PS5, whether it's being updated or anything like that, I don't know. But to me, it seems like if that is a game which is exclusive to PS5 and you have to pay full price for it and everything, I'm going to be a little disappointed because it seems like it's very much sort of like an expansion. It's sort of like a 1.5.
And this is the time for them to announce that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because what Sony has done right now is they've absolutely won the hype train. So their reveal and everything last week was so much better than Xbox in every way, shape, or form. I mean, the gameplay was actual gameplay. which was key. Like, we saw menus. That's insane for a reveal like that. But everything just looked amazing. And even though a lot of those games are not going to be PS5 exclusives, people still think they are because of how well that reveal was.
I think we know most about it. They've shown like controller, they've shown
Right.
pretty much all the accessories, they've shown the hardware. We're still waiting on final release date, probably November, like every time. I'm also curious about price. But the thing is, they say that they left no pixel untouched when sort of redesigning the interface, which is great, which is cool. Like,
Yeah.
I'm glad it's not just a complete sort of rollover, which is something that, to be fair, we have not seen anything of Series X.
No.
As far as I know, with my experience with Series X, it was running a very similar looking...
It was basically the Xbox One.
It was running a version of it, but I know that it was a very rough version that was like for testing. I don't want to judge that too much.
I could tell you that the thing I hate most about I'm mostly like Xbox versus PlayStation, but I cannot stand Xbox's interface.
What do you think? No, for real. You are someone who owns an Xbox One and a PS4.
I'm console agnostic. I have both because there's games on both that I want to play.
Yeah.
The thing that I feel like is going to be a key factor for most people is we are in a pretty weird release year. Economically, a lot of people don't have the capital to buy two of these back to back.
Look, we're going into a generation where Sony has a massive lead. They outsold the Xbox One 2-1 at least, if not more, right? There are over 100 million PlayStation 4s out there.
Yes.
I think one of the big challenges for Sony is how do they convert that 100 million sort of user base of the PS4 to go out and spend $400, $500, $600 on a PS5. That's, I think, their real challenge. They're not almost competing with Xbox. They're competing with themselves.
I think everyone is on board. PS5 looked amazing.
Yeah.
Like, everything they showed was just graphically great. One thing we didn't hear at all in that reveal was, are those games running at 30? Are they locked at 30? Are they running 60? Are they
Very good
running
point.
120?
Yeah.
Because we know that the systems are capable of 4K 120.
Yes.
We're never gonna see that, or like
Well, no.
maybe in like later like.
I actually don't think it's crazy. So
I don't think we're gonna see that in the first 2 years.
Well, so here's the thing, right? So right now, the current consoles top out at 4K 60, right? Which is obviously what most TVs are capable of. There's a few
Right.
TVs that'll go a little higher than that, but 4K 60 is pretty much the standard. And obviously, 1080p, 30 and 60 was kind of what the base consoles did. But with the current PlayStation 5 and Series X, they have the capability of running at 120 frames per second. I think that's a big component of the marketing strategy for these consoles. Because if you are someone who's considering upgrading your Xbox One or PS4, why would you spend that money to upgrade, right?
Yeah.
That's a big challenge. I think one of the ways that they can do that is by focusing on the latency, the smoothness, sort of that next-gen feel, because you can look at a game and say, oh, look at that ray tracing, look at that great lighting, look at these super fast load times. Like, those will all be sort of material benefits. But I think what will probably be the biggest wow factor is you plug that PS5 into your TV, or you go to the store and you see it running on the demo. You go, oh, this is so smooth. This is like, that's a real wow moment for people.
I think that Sony is in a much better position to accomplish that. So a lot of what Xbox showed was third-party gameplay, which is much less likely to take advantage of the full specs. I mean, PS5 has probably like Insomniac. If they had come out and said, all right, Spider-Man is going to be running 4K 60, or even better yet, like, 1440p at 120 or something like that. That would, like, that right there.
First of all, we have to consider that all of these events are being done sort of streamed over like Twitch and YouTube. I mean, the Sony thing was streamed at 30 frames per second.
Right, which
you don't get a good sense of that.
No.
But the thing is, most
even
people
even if they were playing it at a higher frame rate, you're seeing it at 30.
And the thing is, they can stream these games at 120 FPS if they find some platform to let them do that. But then the thing is, who's gonna be able to watch that? A bunch of people with gaming PCs that already know what that looks like, right? They need to reach normal people and show them what these super smooth frame rates look like. But I actually do think that sort of this is a really somewhat reasonable ask for these new consoles.
I
right?
agree.
We know for a fact that Gears 5, it's not confirmed, but they straight up said we're exploring running Gears 5 multiplayer at 120 FPS.
Right.
It's not like, to me, I don't know. It seems like a thing that if it was going to be a big thing, people would start talking about it. But it does seem like at the very least some titles will support it. Well, what is it about these games that you think the PlayStation 5 will not be able to be capable of 120?
It's not that I think they'll perfectly be capable.
Yeah.
It's whether developers are taking advantage of it. because, like you said, there's no TVs that are like no one has a TV.
Some,
but
not
like
many.
they're still very expensive.
Yeah.
So unless you're buying a $500-600 gaming monitor to play with this, like I personally would rather play my console on a 65-inch TV versus a 27-inch gaming monitor. That's just me. But my TV is locked at 60. I think the systems are capable right now, no problem. It's whether it's
they want to spend the time developing a game that 5% of people may do.
Yeah.
I guess my only counterpoint to that is when you look at the performance of a PS5 or a Series X, it's very much equivalent to a pretty high-end gaming PC, which would very easily be able to play a lot of these games 1080p, 1440p, but at 120 frames per second. So that's sort of just my thought of if it's. I don't know how much extra work is really going to be. I'm sure I'm understating it, but PC games have supported high frame rates for a very long time. If you have the performance for it, and you have the capability of connecting it to the display, to me that seems like it would be one of the natural sort of selling points. Because when you look at the Xbox versus the PS5 right now, PlayStation is really focusing on the immersion, the experience, because they know they have to sell people. Like, PlayStation 4 games look great. They're trying to sell you on, now get rid of that PS4 Pro and buy a PS5.
You know what we haven't talked about at all, though? That SSD in the PS5.
Fast.
It's fast.
F-A-S-T-T-T.
But it's tiny. That's not going to hold your entire library over the course of that.
So, for context, 825 gigabytes is what you get in the PS5.
Yeah.
1 terabyte in Series X. Series X does have these sort of external memory card style things.
Which are full speed.
Full speed SSDs
Yes.
you can run. They will just expand your storage. And right now we've seen a 1 terabyte. So we know at the very least you could get 1 terabyte plus 1 terabyte on Xbox.
Right.
PlayStation, it comes with an 825 gig SSD, which is of course smaller than the 1 terabyte consoles that most people have today.
But
it's upgradable. You can upgrade it with your own SSD if you want to open up the PlayStation 5. You can, just like every other from PlayStation 2 on, you can do it. The problem though is that because the PlayStation 5 SSD that's built in is incredibly fast, you'd be really hard pressed to buy a PC SSD which will work. But I think there are real questions about how, when you go buy your $500 or $600 PlayStation 5 and you download 500 gigabyte games, all of a sudden your drive is full. What are you gonna do?
Like, again, terrified of right now Modern Warfare today. So a last generation console game is 184 gigs.
No, wait.
Yes.
184?
To get right now, the current is to have like Modern Warfare and the Warzone download is 184 gigs. Yes. I have entire games that are like 7 or 8 gigs. Like,
remember when games used to ship on a DVD that was like 7.5?
Yeah. So, are they going to be relying more heavily on like a 4K Blu-ray?
So there are some real challenges with this next generation of consoles. I'm going to be really curious to see how Sony, obviously Microsoft, but really to a larger extent how Sony are able to market this and how they're really able to get the word out. Yes, of course there's that PS5. Yeah, it's going to be not focused. What was it? Not focused on price but value or some ridiculous marketing term. Like, we're not concerned with the price that you have to pay for our new This Is Premium service. We're just concerned with the value that we provide with extra 5 minutes of Matt talking to you as you fall asleep gently into the night when you subscribe at youtube.com/thisis for $0.99. Free 99, some might say. So have you decided on buying yourself a PlayStation 5? Has Sony convinced you? Or are you thinking about the Xbox side of the fence, or maybe even not even upgrading at all? Let us know in the comments below. After, of course, you smash that subscribe button to see lots more of This Is... I was about to say goodness. I think that's a little overstating it. This is content.
This is okayness.
This is okayness.
Thanks for watching, guys.